just recently it came up about Florida, about the Gulf and the oil spill.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to say anything about that?
Well, I thought, I mean, the oil spill, it's just a calamity, and it's just a disaster that surely could have been avoided with a little bit more forethought. However, in one sense, if that's what it's going to take for humans to realize that we have to do something different than poking holes in the earth and trying to extract oil for power, then that's what it's going to take. And in some ways you could think of all these dolphins that are dying and whales and all the wildlife that's getting wiped out as the earth dedicating themselves, dedicating their lives to the evolution of humankind, to the evolution of our society, to realize we can't continue doing this. The other thing is, surprised me about the oil spill is that I didn't see so many scientists start to talk about the effect of, for instance, a huge dark spot like that in our oceans, which would absorb heat. So, for instance, a few months ago in my monthly call, I mentioned that I was thinking about it, and I thought, hey, wait a minute, what if all the oil is heating up, then it's going to heat up the ocean. This could create some serious problem with the currents of our oceans. And sure enough, almost a month after, Italian physicists that are monitoring with satellite data the loop current, the major current in the Atlantic that goes all the way up the coast, the east coast, all the way to Europe and all the way back, and actually is part of a very significant percentage of what controls the weather systems in the northern and southern hemisphere in some ways. That loop current is disturbed. The papers that were written by these physicists said it's broken, which is what I had expected. But that news didn't seem to have made the, front page news of all the newspapers in the world, which it should have. It's a very significant piece of news. You're talking about billions and billions of tons of fluids that are not flowing in the way that they are supposed to. So you expect some changes, climatic changes on our planet that could be very, very significant in the next few years if that current doesn't get going again. And it's most likely because the oil heated up the lower layers of the Gulf Stream, and the Gulf Stream and these loop current run because there's a temperature difference between the bottom and the top, and if you take that away, then it stops running.
Would you like to tell us a little bit how you can see energy gathering or utilization of energy, how we're evolving, or how we could accelerate this for it to be clean and efficient?
Right. I think that some of the physics I'm writing are showing a pathway to extracting energy directly out of the vacuum. And that pathway may be, categorized by a few things. One is spin must be involved, and it's high velocity spin, highly dense magnetic fields, and most likely resonance, a resonance match with the structure of space-time. And so I think between those three principles, you could engineer technology that creates a direct link into the structure of space-time itself. And I think that technology actually was what was here thousands of years ago. Because if you think about it, and this is what I eventually came up with, is that if you have a crystal with plasma in it and you ionize the plasma, you can probably use magnetic fields. You can use magnetic fields to control the plasma dynamics inside that crystal structure, and make the plasma move in very specific way that reproduces the natural behavior of plasma in the universe, like the plasma around our sun or the plasma in our galaxy and so on. And by doing so, if you have the right dynamics and the right velocity, you can most likely create a pinch in space-time, a singularity, a point of infinite density, a point of infinite energy potential, and the system could become self-organizing and self-running, and you could most likely extract enormous amount of energy from it. And so this is all in the works, and I've been working on this for a fair amount of time now.
And resonance, would that be the human voice? Could it be the human voice?
Resonance, it could be, I'm thinking of more of like, the plasma oscillations in the system would have to come into coherency and maybe reach levels of octavization or resonance where all of a sudden the vacuum structure or the energy of the vacuum is able to flow through the plasma field and increase the energy level and self-organize. So there's, plasma is well known for going into these self-organizing moments at very specific resonant frequencies, depending on the system. And I think those moments are very important. They're hints about that the plasma is interacting with something that is self-organizing, that is very energetic, and that's where we should explore making that connection to this energy of the vacuum, which is present everywhere, and which is extremely dense. So a very small amount of extraction of the energy available in the vacuum would produce a very, very significant amount of change in our society.
And for our viewers, for those who aren't scientists, could you explain plasma?
Plasma is a state of matter that was fairly recently discovered. Until recently in history, we only thought there was 3 states of matter: solid, liquid, and gaseous. And then we realized that when a gas gets highly ionized, meaning a highly charged gas, like the air, for people that have a hard time visualizing this, like the air in a storm, how the air gets really, really charged, and then there's plasma discharge that we call lightning. Well, imagine that you have a gas that's high and you're charging it and you're charging it. At one point it reaches a state that we call plasma, where it tends towards self-organization and all this stuff. It has very particular dynamics that are not, they're kind of fluid, but as well they're, gaseous at the same time and so on. So it has its own state. So this is a 4th state of matter, is plasma, and it makes up most of the universe. Most of the universe is plasma, some 99% of our universe, or 98% of our universe is plasma, and the rest that we don't call plasma, I tend to think of as plasma that has cooled off, that has discharged enough so that it became more, solid and reached other phases like, gas and water or fluid and solid. So, I think at the end of the day, it's all plasma, and plasma is like the fundamental element, the creative element of the universe. there's the vacuum and then there's plasma, like the first octave of creation of the universe.